Hello, friends. So far, over the past nearly 2 weeks, we have seen how one progresses from being a new manager to a leader, a true leader. And what are the different styles of leaderships he can adapt depending on his personality, depending on his likes and dislikes? What are the traits that the leadership styles carry with them? And when are what leadership styles good, even if they sound toxic? Okay, and it depends on the circumstances, depends on the situation you are in. In today and the next episode, we are going to look at one further step on your way to becoming a great leader. While your personality, style, and everything is going to help you, and a lot of the points that you cover, and you will always see that happening because there is nothing that stands in isolation. So a lot of the points that we will talk about today also have probably been spoken of in some form or the other in an earlier episode. But what we are going to do today and the next episode is that we are going to look at some of the potential pitfalls that you need to be aware of, and you need to maneuver yourselves away from those on your way to becoming a great leader. So you need to stay away from those traps. At this stage, I'd like to mention that I've received quite a few responses, I think upwards of 15, if I'm not mistaken, on people asking me to send them a note listing everything I spoke about in the last episode. That is the different kinds of styles. When are they good? When are they bad? What are the characteristics of a toxic leader? And all of those things that I spoke of last time. Now, unfortunately, I just talk with bullet points. I don't have a draft or a PPT or anything really ready. So I have replied to everyone who has asked for it, saying that I will prepare it over the weekend and send it to them. Why am I mentioning this right now? Because in case after today's episode, also someone has similar requests, please reach out to me. I was not expecting those 15 odd people connecting with me, asking me for this list. But if today also you need a list of whatever points I'm making and what are the traps that you need to avoid, please do reach out to me. And I think I will find enough time during the weekend to cover and make a draft of both the episodes so that you have something kind of a ready reckoner with you, which you can mull over and make great use of. Okay, so what are the pitfalls? Today, it's all about pitfalls. We'll talk more about challenges to great leadership in the next episode. But today, we are going to talk about the first and foremost pitfall is don't rely on your title. I have seen very often, even within my friends, even within my colleagues, that once they get that designation on their visiting card, so to say, okay, they stop being a true leader. They then become somebody who is just associated and wants to flash that title around. Refrain from doing this completely. The second big challenge I have seen is people get an inflated ego. Now, that's something that is very, very detrimental because an inflated ego invariably leads to a corrupt behavior, okay, because you think you own the world, your ego is such, and it also leads to bad judgment. Both of these things are very detrimental to your progress. It also warps your perspective, and thereby your vision narrows. And it compromises on your values. Now, if it does all of these things, how can ego be good for you? So you need to tame your ego the minute you become a leader and get a title, especially. And a lot of people tend to have a very negative attitude towards colleagues and team members. They think they are now superior. Refrain from doing that. always have a positive attitude with everybody that you associate with. Okay. Now, we are going to talk only of pitfalls and potential traps, so to say. Another thing I've noticed, and this I've noticed even in seasoned leaders very often, is that they have poor handling skills when it comes to critical high stake. Remember, the key word is critical high stake conversations. Okay. If you cannot do these conversations, you are deemed for failure. Because what will happen is that whenever you have a challenging conversation to conduct or to participate in, you are going to try more often than not to sweep it under the carpet. You don't want to address it. You don't want to have that conversation. And sweeping it on the carpet is not a solution. Okay, even if it gets forgotten after some time, it's not a solution, because at the back of the mind of the people who are involved in it, it still will be a thing that you did not address. So you need to address it, resolve the challenge rather than shirking and avoiding it. And to do all of this, to be good at and having conversations which are high stakes, so to say, you need to develop negotiation skills. A lot of times it might be about a review and an increment that you are giving to an employee. You need to develop negotiation skills. You need to have patience. Patience when you are listening to the person. Understand his side of things. If there are two people fighting, understand both the sides of things before passing a judgment. You need to be patient. And at all times, be fair and be full of empathy when you are negotiating or when you are resolving a conflict. Remain objective. Refrain from having any kind of unsubstantiated assumptions. Okay, and don't play the blame game. Even if two people are fighting, look only at the positive. No blame game that you did this and you did that, or even when you are in a challenge, nothing that because you did this, I am in this situation. No. So no blame game whatsoever. The next thing I want to talk about, and this, well, I've seen it sometimes, but I've seen it happen and people not reacting, leaders not reacting to it, which is forging unity among teams. When you have two teams who are working on with you, okay, on projects which are interconnected or not, it doesn't matter. But if there is no unity among the teams, then it leads to not so good judgments. Okay, so that's a big problem, and it leads to conflicts between the teams. So to avoid this, I think the first thing you need to do is within your culture, definitely do not support directly or indirectly any office politics, any gossiping. No water cooler times. You do not allow gossiping. Even if somebody comes and tells you, shoo that person off. And don't just shoo him or her off. Tell him that this is not acceptable. Okay. And a great way to forge the unity would be that when you are doing some brainstorming, even if it is just predominantly about one of the teams, get both the teams together in the same room and brainstorm jointly and create that atmosphere during the team, create that situation within the team where both the teams will share ideas, share concerns, share challenges openly. This will build trust between the two teams. And once there is trust between the two teams, that unity will automatically come. Okay. A lot of times when I have seen, especially during my consultancy, when I worked with teams, okay, there are leaders whose sole focus at all times is only on the goal. When they're talking of the goal, you be passionate about it. I'm not saying don't focus on it. I'm saying don't be passionate about it. But that's not the sole thing that you should be communicating. You need to be pragmatic. Sprinkle all that focus and the seriousness. In all seriousness, focus it with empathy for the team, with a communication that respects the team, that understands their challenges, and that end of the day, that motivates the team. And the best way to do this will be to motivate the team, train the team, make sure that you train them properly, and then you let go of your control. Do not micromanage. Okay? Don't breathe down their necks, but at the same time, monitor that everything is happening fine. Because at the end of the day, the overall responsibility of the project is yours and yours alone. And very often, and well, sometimes justified, sometimes not justified, but you need to work along with your team on projects, especially when you know that that kind of a project is something your team has not dealt with before. Another thing which I've seen happening very often and which is a big challenge is not being available. Busyness. A lot of leaders think busyness is a great sign, but trust me, it's one of the worst things that you can depict. Okay, so don't show busyness. Don't be unavailable to your teams. Yeah, I'm not saying be constantly available, be 24 hours, but keep a slot. You can plan yourself saying, okay, afternoon 2 to 4, it's an open door. Anybody can come. Or I used to follow the rule, if my door is closed, okay, that means I'm busy. So be available to your teams and share the workload, because then only will you be less busy. So share the workload, delegate, but support them, train them, whatever they need, you make sure that you are supportive after the delegation. Delegation is not the end of it. And all this will give you free time, which is well spent, which you need really to think about the future of your organization and your team. That is the leader's primary profile, primary task. Okay? Do not lead with fear. There are times when you do it, but if you are doing it, I used to do it quite often. But when you are doing it, make sure that you are balancing the entire thing with off time, so to say, with your team members and your colleagues, and build trust, be caring, and love and inspire them. That in spite of being the one whom people fear, they will also trust you and they will rely on you. And then they know whom to go to when they have an issue. Stay current. What I mean by stay current is the world is changing at a very fast pace. It is unavoidable, and that speed is only going to gather momentum rather than slow down. Okay? Now, when something is constant and inevitable, you need to embrace it. So, be open to new ideas at all times. Don't stay in your, if I was to stay in my old days, I was the CEO of a company, 20 years back. Today, things have changed. I cannot operate the way I was operating then today. And I would not meet that success that I achieved on those days if I was doing so today. So be open to new ideas, keep learning, not only on how to manage and how to be a great leader, but also keep learning of knowledge, technical knowledge, so to say, depending on the work you are doing. Okay, because if you don't have the requisite expertise, how do you expect your team members to look up to you? You don't need to be an expert about everything, but what you profess or what you are indicating as your expertise, you need to stay updated with that. I have said this before. I say it all the time. I used to say it even when I was the CEO myself. If I do not create other leaders from within my team and find someone make sure that he is trained and he's capable of stepping into my shoes. My job is not a threat, but that is the only way I can climb up the ladder. So you need to make sure that you are creating and training new leaders. You need to be truly present and aware when you are at work. Don't have your head in the sand. If there are challenges, you need to rise up, face them, and resolve them. Resolve them in such a way that the success is guaranteed, and resolve them promptly. I have seen this so often in my career where people will just procrastinate on taking a decision. I don't know whether they were hoping it would just wash away or it would fade away. It never does, but it becomes very expensive in every which way. You might lose that first run in the market. The cost of the project may go up. There are so many things. You cannot procrastinate, and you need to resolve the challenges and take decisions promptly. Okay. I mean, I don't really need to say this because I've not found anybody who's not passionate about his work when they become leaders. But it's worth mentioning all the same. Be passionate. Be very enthusiastic about the work you are doing. And you know what's the best part of it? Enthusiasm is contagious. It will wear off on your team, and they will all become as enthusiastic as you are. Another challenge I've seen, not so often, but often enough to mention it, is that people do not understand the difference between urgency and importance. And therefore, they tend to prioritize their tasks in an erroneous manner. So you need to be able to do that sensibly, justifiably. Sit down, think of the tasks in front of you, and you take a call, a nice balanced call on what is urgent, what is important. It might be both, in which case naturally it goes to top of the list, but you need to do that. A lot of times I've seen employees telling me that, oh, I can't afford to make a mistake. It's not tolerated here. There are leaders who do that. They create a culture where you have to avoid mistake at all costs. And I'm sure you know how this will affect you. People will not do new things. Therefore, if there is a better way of doing something, you will not find it. You have to give people the right to fail. Because only when they fail, do something, will you know how it can be done better and improve on it. Okay. The last point I have to make is, under no circumstances should you tolerate bad behavior from any team member or tolerate poor performance from any team member. As the saying goes, one bad apple can spoil the whole basket. That one guy who has a problem can corrupt the entire team. So you need to be very, very strict about it. Under no circumstances do you tolerate bad behavior and poor performance. Having said this, I will end today's session. We've looked at a lot of pitfalls, and you need to start noting them down, marking them, and looking at the ones you need to address. Prioritize them based on urgency. Okay, prioritize them and make sure that you are well onto your way to becoming a great leader without getting into any of these traps. Thank you all. You have a great evening and enjoy it.